Hi, Pisces. Welcome to your September 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, Pisces, your opposite sign is Virgo, and Virgo is featured prominently in the month of September, as you know, because you know that the sun is in Virgo every year in September. And this year we have a new moon here on the 6th at 14 degrees of Virgo. Opposite sign, opposite house. So that would be the 7th house. And that means that one-on-one relationships are highlighted. And while romantic one-on-one relationships or committed partnerships are the first things that we think about when we think about the 7th house, because it is the house of marriage, it can be business partnerships, client, what I was thinking of, what do you call the person who's actually doing the work? Gosh, I just drew a blank. Business owner, client, I can't think of the word, type of partnerships or interactions, and any relationship that you have that is of that level, where it's not just kind of like a social thing and you're not connecting with somebody individually. So there's some kind of possible new developments with that type of relationship. Now, September is a month where a lot of people get married, and because people tend to imitate one another, monkey see, monkey do, it has been established that September is a month like June where people get married. So that might be when you get married. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have called you a monkey because you're happening to get married in September. It's a beautiful month, at least in the northern hemisphere. Even if it's spring, that can be a beautiful time of year if you're down under. But the point is that there could be some new development there. And another thing to point out is that Mars is in this area until the middle of the month. And that could have, complete opposite effect, because actually another thing about the 7th house is it's the house of legal affairs. So, Mars is very aggressive, and it can indicate either conflict or action or, application of one's energy. And so in this area, it might indicate some kind of a legal matter that you're fighting. Mars is a warrior. So the new moon in Virgo could be a divorce. And that's the new development in your marriage, is that you're ending the marriage or moving out of the apartment or house. And, that's the kind of thing that people don't like to talk about because they think that there's something negative. No, it's just a change in circumstance. Some relationships have, well, I would say all relationships are in a season, and some seasons last longer than others. And we attach to situations our own labels, or how we project certain assessments onto them. So in other words, if a person views their divorce as being some kind of confirmation that they cannot win at things, if they see it as some kind of a defeat, then they will, choose to view it through a negative lens. And it doesn't have to be that way at all. We don't have to look at a relationship that doesn't last as being a complete failure or even something that is bad. And we can stay civil with that person unless they don't want to. And in that case, we can still maintain a higher ground. We don't have to go into any kind of drama about it. So, yeah, that's what's happening on that front. And on the 10th, Venus goes into Scorpio. And this is another water sign. By the way, I just want to say one last thing about Mars in the 7th house. This could be something positive where your relationship is spicing up a bit. Mars is the libido. Maybe there have been a lot of stressful situations, or you're working different hours and you don't have time for one another, and you're kind of spicing up your relationship. It can also be a time when you're getting physically fit with your partner, utilizing that partnership to support one another in fitness goals. That could be what's going on. So on the 10th, Venus goes into Scorpio, another water sign, the water sign that's before you, and that's going to be the 9th house. And the 9th house is very adventurous. This is Sagittarius's house, and it can deal with long distance travel and higher education. It's the God house. Right off the bat, I could think of, single Pisces people meeting someone, falling in love with someone who is of a different ethnicity, race. When I say ethnicity, like nationality, things like that. And you could even be traveling. I would say traveling far away is even more indicated in a couple of months and will be a feature for Pisces come 2022, when triggers to the 9th house are going to be happening in Scorpio. That's going to be the area, along with the opposite house, the 3rd house, where Taurus resides, for you in the next year and a half, starting in November with Taurus. So the 3rd and 9th house is getting triggered. And of course, this is a general forecast because especially with the natal chart, which really does deal with mundane events, that could be out the window if you're listening for your sun sign. Well, I don't want to get too far into the weeds about that, but the individual chart is always going to be different than what I'm talking about. But this gives you a general idea. So Venus in the 9th house, if you've been trying to get money for university, it could come through maybe at the 11th hour, because usually college begins in September. On the 14th, Mars goes into Libra, and so Mars is going into the 8th house. Now, this is an area that Pisces might feel quite comfortable with, because this is Scorpio's domain, and it is a water house, therefore. And so it deals with some of the same themes that the house that you rule, Scorpio, the 12th, deals with. So the subconscious mind could come into the picture, and that has a link to psychology, a lot of times. But ultimately, I see it as spirituality, because the mind is not just this dumb flesh. The mind is this thing that it's the consciousness, the higher consciousness. Obviously, we have a lower consciousness and a higher consciousness. And the part of our mind that is connected to God or source energy is connected to wisdom. And that kind of thing is I would associate more with the 9th than the 8th. The 8th is like beyond the veil. The eighth house can represent death and transformation. And so channeling, mediumship can be part of the eighth. The 12th house that you represent is more of like the Akashic records. So it deals with all lifetimes and to spiritual planes of existence. And but you may really resonate with some of the things that the eighth house represents. Alchemy, so personal transformation, the occult, astrology, the tarot, and other divining methods. And all, just the secrets of the universe can be the eighth house. Mars is very driven to this. There can even be like ambition associated with it. So maybe there's some kind of a training that you are receiving, or you're trying to pour all your energy into this area because you want to start your own healing business. That certainly would be, a go-to for a Pisces individual. So those kinds of things are indicated. However, with the theme that I was talking about with the seventh house and some kind of legal matter, this could have something to do with a will. The eighth house is shared resources or other kinds of, battles with money that is connected to you and other people. Like, let's say you're getting divorced and there is some kind of conflict as it relates to, who gets what monetarily. I helped you start that business, and now you want to just take all your take everything with you, but I should get some cut of those profits, that kind of thing. So you may be fighting over money. So again, the spiritual rears its head here. Do you want to, do you think that this is wise? Because that's always something that you can choose. Sometimes it is important because perhaps somebody has been very, they've exploited you. And it wouldn't be right to walk away from it, because you would be allowing that person to get away with that type of predatory behavior. I'm not saying that when money comes into the picture, we should just lie down all the time. But it depends, I'm talking about like when greed gets triggered and people just lose their heads. Obviously, that is not a higher vibration. So case by case basis with those types of matters, obviously. And on the 20th, there's a full moon at 28 degrees of Pisces. I wasn't even thinking about that. So you have a full moon, and this is at a very late degree of your sign. So when you're dealing with a full moon in a late degree of a sign, it's kind of like, to me, that really showing that sense of that, coming to the highest peak and having to maybe say goodbye sometimes to certain things. So in other words, if this had been an early degree in Pisces, it almost might be like some kind of a new beginning, in a sense. But a late degree, it's like everything being revealed. Full moons can bring that. It's like purging things to the surface. In the first house, this is really about letting go of maybe this is a major ending for a season in your life, even. And again, it could have something to do with a relationship if you have been married and you've identified as being part of that couple, and now you're going to be faced with being single, that's going to be a major adjustment. And that is going to affect your so-called image or even how you view yourself. So that your identity, the first house. Being able to let go and not feeling like you're losing something. Yeah, like, oh yeah, there's that term I've been hearing a lot lately, like the ego death. And I still haven't gotten like this official definition of that. I mean, I can infer what it means, but it's something like that. I mean, you could be having this ego death. I'll look it up because I might want to put that in the title of this video. On the 22nd, the sun goes into Libra. And again, this is for you, that 8th house. And it's very deep. So I think that given the chain of events here, that you're really tuning into yourself at a deep level in September, whatever these changes represent for you, Pisces. And yes, I have to acknowledge that you have Neptune in your sign, and I believe Neptune is retrograde right now. So that can kind of peel back some of the illusions that you have been happily living in. Because, you're very comfortable with fantasy, probably better than reality, because, reality can be kind of dull sometimes. It's not as brilliant as, I just like flashed on, The Wizard of Oz or something like that, living in this, the Emerald City or something like that. The Emerald City is beautifully, brilliantly green. It's not just kind of these dull colors that don't always glisten, So you may have to kind of like shift some of those tendencies, because the 8th house is really about alchemy, personal transformation, but it's also about the shadow, and being able to face one's shadow work, which to me is not work, but it's presence. It means that you are in the presence of your shadow. You are consciously aware of it, and you don't flinch. You don't try to run away from it. You stare it in the eye, and you're okay with it. You make peace with it, and you integrate it. With Pisces, a lot of times the lack of integration with the shadow is really the lack of integration with your power, believe it or not, because Pisces can represent the victim. Whereas another sign might be in need more of learning how to heal their anger. You may need to acknowledge your anger. You may need to acknowledge some of those unpleasant emotions that have caused you to kind of turn them on yourself. So in any case, this can be a time of great inner work simply by allowing it to come to the surface. And I think that, again, looking forward to 2022, that this is going to be a theme for you, because the 8th house will be impacted. No, not the 8th house. I'm sorry. The 9th house will be impacted for you. But the 8th house, Libra, I mean, that's going to happen next. That'll be couple years down the line. Okay, so on the 27th in the same area, we're going to have a Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrogrades in the 8th house are less about the mind and more about your, it can be about the mind, but not the intellectual part of the mind. The mind, like the psychological tendencies. So this can be very deep. And really understanding your motivations, especially if there has been an event lately, Pisces, that has been challenging for you, can be very fruitful. Even something like psychotherapy is connected to the 8th house, and but it's like really analyzing whether you're doing it with somebody else, like a trained professional, or you're doing it on your own, and you're just trying to, like, self inquiry, they would call it in the spiritual community. It's really about that kind of looking deep within yourself to find out, like, why you're doing what you're doing. So an example would be if you are having conflict, if somebody has recently died and left a will, and you and family members are fighting over it, and you feel very strongly about this issue for some reason, like perhaps it represents to you other things that have, occurred in the past related to your family of origin. Like, it kind of just highlights a lot of these themes, and it can make you really, like, say, wow, connect those dots, in other words. So let me see, is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's about it. And let me just double check here. So it can be like, the other thing too is with that situation, if there's like some kind of a document, I'm using will, it doesn't have to be, but I'll just say like a will with a Mercury retrograde in this house, that could be something that gets contested. Maybe they find a second will, or they find out that the person never signed it, and so it's null and void. Those kinds of things can come up and delay the process. Okay, that's what I have for you, Pisces. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, I do a lot of astrological readings, and I do have double readings, which have been quite popular because it is financially a better deal, and you get a lot more bang for your buck, in other words. And the deep dive reading combines 1 hour of natal chart interpretation with 1 hour of transits. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.